Mississippi.
From the Foundation Studio right here on Biloxi's Back Bay, I want to welcome you to SuperTalk Outdoors, where we celebrate every single Monday at lunchtime the world-class outdoors of the state of Mississippi, because as I say every week, Mississippi is the capital of the outdoors in America. I want to thank you for joining us on the powerful SuperTalk Mississippi Radio Network, or on SuperTalk TV at C-Spire TV, or you might be watching the show on YouTube or Facebook or listening on your favorite podcasts. It's September the 18th, 2023. Man, this year has gone by quick, hasn't it? Hey, by the way, the views on this show are mine, not those of the foundation, the wonderful separate foundation called the Mississippi Foundation for Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. They do great work. It's such a dedicated board. Raising money and then getting involved in issues from time to time that are important to the state of Mississippi. I'm thrilled to be affiliated with them. But when it comes to outdoors and outdoors issues, you can count on me to say what needs to be said, and I'm honored to be in this position. Hey, before we get to our first guest, I just wanted to share with you, I came across a quote this over the weekend from B.B. King, and it got me thinking. Let me share the quote with you, and I'll share with you some of the thoughts that this quote elicited. And it is this: the beautiful thing about learning is nobody can take it away from us. The beautiful thing about learning is no one can take it away from us. Isn't that true, though? You think about the outdoors. I think it's especially true about the outdoors. What we learn when we're in the outdoors inspires us really for the rest of our lives. It gives us an outlet to enjoy life. It gives us the opportunity to share special times with people that we care about as well. It helps us understand how we fit into the world and the role we can play to make the world a better place. So B.B. King was right. The beautiful thing about learning is no one can take it away from us. B.B. King was actually born in a cabin. It's on September the 16th, 1925. That cabin was actually on the bank of Bear Creek in a small little community in the Mississippi Delta called Burr Clare, Mississippi. And like I said, it's in the heart of Mississippi Delta, and it's really, really close to where I hunt, actually. So when I passed the Mississippi Blues Trail marker there in Burr Clare, again, out in the middle of nowhere, I can't help but think about Mississippi's impact on the world. I mean, really. I mean, there's a natural curiosity that's elicited when you see those Blues Trails markers. I know you feel the same way. It gives you a sense of pride, doesn't it, as Mississippians, when we see all the impacts that these various musicians have had on the world. And it reminds me, I'm sure it reminds you as well, why we love this state. And it makes us want to learn more, doesn't it? Yes, I love Mississippi, and I love the people here, and I love to spend time in the Mississippi Delta. In fact, I'll be headed there this week to do some food plot work, like a lot of us have to do. What we learn as outdoors men and women when we travel the state is that, honestly, what we learn is beyond hunting and fishing, actually. And what we see is not just that Mississippi is the capital of the outdoors in America. For example, when you think about B.B. King and that quote from B.B. King, and you think about him and others, undeniably, Mississippi is the birthplace of American music. You think about in Mississippi, we produced the king of rock and roll, Elvis Presley, the father of country music, Jimmy Rogers, and, of course, the king of blues, B.B. King. The impact blues, for example, in particular, has had on the world cannot be overstated. Bands like the Rolling Stones and the Beatles, there's a British blues movement that derived from the Mississippi blues music. Eric Clapton, for example, called the blues guitarist Robert Johnson, who incidentally is buried right outside Greenwood at a church on Money Road there. He said that he's the most influential blues singer who ever lived. And then there's Bob Dylan and Keith Richards and Robert Plant. Man, the list goes on and on, all inspired by the Mississippi Delta. There's so many inspiring stories to learn and so many stories to tell as we travel as outdoorsmen and women across this great state. It's really cool, really cool. Hey, one last thing I want to mention to you. Again, that quote conjures up a lot, but 51% of Mississippians live in rural areas. And so one thing you'll see when you take a look at the latest census is that in other states, people are working to get out of rural areas. One thing that's unique about Mississippi is that people who live in rural areas in Mississippi, they actually want to stay there. That's something really important. So it's important to understand that Mississippi will never overcome some of its standing in the nation when it comes to things like education and poverty and economic challenges and opportunities until we make greater strides in places like the Mississippi Delta. That's one of the reasons why on my other show, the Riecke Matthews Show, I talk a lot about things like healthcare. Our leaders have to move faster to find solutions on topics like that one. For example, how often have you wondered when you're hunting and fishing in rural areas of Mississippi, if you were to have a medical emergency, where would you go for help? The answer isn't good for too many areas of the state. So we've got to fix this. But too many hospitals are closing all across the state, and there's some big challenges as it relates to health care. But anyway, all of this because of reading one B.B. King quote. The beautiful thing about learning is nobody can take it away from you. Hey, listen, my son and I took my grandkids fishing in Biloxi's Back Bay over the weekend. We caught a nice redfish. We caught some beautiful shrimp with the cast net. We fried it all yesterday, and it was really good, really incredible. We're so lucky to live in this great state. Hey, speaking of fishing, let's shift gears now and move over to my new friend Jeremy McCain, who is the South State Lakes supervisor, and we're gonna talk about where Jeremy's love of the outdoors came from and what his responsibilities are these days at the Mississippi Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. Jeremy, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing okay, thank you.
It's good to see. Hey, you heard what I said at the beginning of the show, but when you travel this state, man, there's so much to learn and there's so much to have pride in, isn't it, when you take it all in?
Yes, sir.
So, look, where did your love of the outdoors come from, Jeremy?
Well, I grew up pretty much in the woods, the other side of Columbia, Mississippi there, and I grew up on the banks of what they call 10 Mile Creek. And I would sit there with a hook in the water most of the year. It was too cold in the winter, but any other time of the year, I was pretty much there. And once I got old enough, that's what I decided to specialize my study into.
There's something, you heard what I said about 51% of Mississippians living in rural areas, but people who grow up in the rural areas of Mississippi, I don't blame them for not wanting to move away. I don't blame them for loving it. And you heard what I always say that we're the capital of the outdoors in America, but man, when you put it all together, this is a special place, Mississippi, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
So it literally hooked you, didn't it?
Yeah, from early age.
So did you get it from your grandfather, your father? Where did it come from?
Well, my dad kind of passed it down, but I grabbed it and ran.
So what did you do when you went to high school, and what did you do after that?
Well, after high school, I went to a junior college for 2 years, just to kind of test the waters and make sure that's what I wanted to do. And once I decided that, yes, this is the path for me, I went to Southern Mississippi and I majored in marine biology. So I got a 4-year degree there. And 1 year after graduation, I got the job with the agency here.
Well, listen, Southern Miss to the top.
Yes, sir.
Everyone in my family except my son, Justin, who went to Auburn. He was always going to be the outlier. But we all went to Southern Miss, and we're proud and active alumni. I'm a proud member of the Hall of Fame for the University of Southern Mississippi. I'm thrilled to be able to say that. But their marine biology program is a good one, isn't it?
Yes, sir. When I was there, it was the number 3 in the nation, and that was only because it wasn't on a bigger water body.
Well, what they've done, I tell you what, man, what they've done and built here on the coast, I know it goes beyond that, but what they've done and built here is truly incredible. I mean, it's a first-class facility, and the work that they do in so many different areas, man. I mean, what a great place to learn about marine biology.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I was there in 2005. I was one of the last groups to go through the initial classrooms before they were wiped off at GCRL, and I graduated in '06, and lucky enough to get the position with the agency, and been there ever since.
Well, yeah, Jeremy, I have a show called the Riecke Matthews Show, and I talk a lot about the Katrina defined so many of us. Those of us who were here. I had the honor of writing the foreword to Haley Barbour's book America's Great Storm, and worked closely with him in the recovery effort as the publisher of the Sun Arrow. But the Hurricane Katrina defined so many of us. When we come back on the other side, in fact, we mentioned what impact it actually had on you, and then we're going to talk about your areas of responsibility for the 7 state fishing lakes of the South region. We'll see you after this. Mississippi.
Leading the conversation on Mississippi's outdoors. It's Super Talk Outdoors with Riecke Matthews on Super Talk Mississippi.
Welcome back to Super Talk Outdoors as we listen to my friend Steve Azar, One Mississippi, the new state song for Mississippi and the theme song for Super Talk Outdoors. In fact, I saw a video posted that last week he actually went to a school, and they had sort of the school assembly, and he played One Mississippi to the kids, and every kid in that auditorium knew every word to that song. Oh my gosh, if you ever wanted to see such a compelling reason why this needed to be the new state song for Mississippi, you got to watch that video. It's truly incredible. Hey, I have Jerry McCain with us today. He's a South State Lake supervisor for the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. And when we went to break, we were talking about how he was like the last class that went through the marine education program at the University of Southern Mississippi before Hurricane Katrina hit. But boy, it was a defining moment for that program and for the coast, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, and they did rebuild, but as far as the original classrooms and a huge amount of specimens that were there for teaching age were just lost. It was a massive hit in that area.
You know what's interesting? Haley Barbour used to say, and this is true about life, this is true whether you're a farmer, this is true no matter what you do. Certainly true after a disaster. He used to say that there's a Chinese symbol that means disaster, and the same symbol also means opportunity. It's like a yin-yang symbol. And it's true. I mean, you think about how the marine education program from the University of Southern Mississippi came back. While a lot was lost, they used it as an opportunity to create a new vision for that program and to build first-class facilities that hopefully will withstand the next storm. But, it took some time to recover, but they found the opportunity in that disaster, didn't they?
Oh, yes. Yes, sir.
Also, you think about, man, I tell you what, I didn't think too much about it till just now. You think about the lakes of the South region and the challenges they went through after the storm. Truly incredible. But you joined the department not long after that, and you've had a terrific career since. Kind of give me a sense of what you did to get to where you are now.
Well, when I originally was hired on, I started out as a biologist. And they actually sent me to a region you were discussing earlier. I was there for about 2 years in the Delta. So I spent a little bit of time there going from Oxbow to Oxbow. And after that, I transferred back closer to home and was a biologist in District 6 area, the coastal waters, and coastal rivers and lakes. And after about 10 years of being a biologist, I was offered the promotion to pick up the South State Lakes. And I, of course, jumped on that because it's a great group of guys that run the lakes. And and it was an offer I couldn't refuse, and I've honestly loved it ever since.
Well, that's cool. I mean, look. I often say on this show that our forefathers did an amazing job of thinking about public land, setting aside so many thousands of acres of public land. Even more recently, the Phil Bryant WMA, creating that amazing place and finding the resources to be able to buy that kind of land. But the fact that we've got so many great public places to go is one of the things that separates Mississippi from other places and other countries around the world. I mean, you think about the lakes that we have access to. Let's just in your area of responsibility, give people a sense of the wonderful lakes that we have access to.
Well, we have 7 state fishing lakes, pretty much just from Highway 84 south, and that's not counting the state park lakes, which I am not purview to, but those are available as well. So we have a multitude of fishing opportunities and water bodies for someone to just pick up and say, hey, I want to go see the water today. There's something close by.
So I had someone on the show recently talking about public land. He actually was from South Africa, and he said, Just think about it. Where you're sitting now, within about 10 minutes, you can be on public land somewhere. You can be standing on public dirt or in a pond or a lake somewhere. That's true, man. You can go. In your case, you're talking about some great camping and nature trails and pavilions for public use. Of course, if you think about the kind of species, bass and brim and crappie and catfish, man, it's awesome, isn't it?
Oh, yes. And right now, we had an extremely hot summer, so there wasn't a whole lot of people out fishing because, well, it's too hot. And now that it's starting to cool off, and as the temperatures go down, I'm seeing more and more get out, and that trend will probably continue until winter. So now is a good time to find you a bankside somewhere to sit on for a while.
That's it. Hey, you're right about it. Man, what a hot summer. Woo! I went out yesterday morning in particular. Didn't necessarily. It was a little bit warm this morning, but yesterday morning, and I thought it's starting to feel like it could be cool. Of course, it wasn't cool yet. My wife immediately corrected me to say it's not cool. I said, but man, when you compare it to, usually you walk outside and you cut the air with a knife.
Exactly.
You start to feel it, man. There's a transition happening, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's in the air.
Hey, listen, I bet those lakes are beautiful when those hardwoods start, changing. I bet you've seen some beautiful scenes, haven't you?
Yes, sir. Especially when, like you said, the hardwoods start changing, and you can see them across the lake, and it turns into something very, very nice there as far as picture opportunities. There's actually quite a few photographers that visit the lakes for those reasons. They'll bird watch, or they'll capture the changing of the leaves. There's a little bit of something for everybody at these lakes.
So when you look at the 7 lakes in the South region that you're responsible for, and you think about the heat that we've had to endure, did the lakes weather that pretty well?
Yes. We've there was a lot of slowdown as far as customers coming to fish and all that, but we still had the local workers coming by, taking their lunch breaks at a picnic table. We had people using the pavilions, having a family event in the shade there. We definitely took a hit number-wise as far as visitors, but there were still opportunities for people to beat the heat at the lakes.
So do all of these lakes have boat launches?
Yes, sir. There's a way to launch on every one of the state lakes.
Well, that's true. So when you're telling someone about what you do and why you love it so much, what do you tell them?
Well, I used to say that I loved fishing, and I'd found a way to be paid for it, even though I didn't have to actually catch anything. And now I get paid to keep up with some of the more beautiful areas of the state of Mississippi, in my opinion. And I just, just can't argue with that.
Hey, so one interesting thing, when you go out and bump into people who are enjoying the lake, you meet people really not just from Mississippi, from all over the place, don't you?
Oh, yes, sir.
Give me an example.
Oh, it was quite a few years ago, but I met a catfisherman from Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
He was down one of the southern lakes here. He comes down every year and he tries to fill a cooler full of catfish because he just loves coming down here and catfishing. I've met multitudes of people from Illinois coming down for the crappie season. Bass fishermen who don't have an opportunity where they live, just making the rounds through the lakes.
Yeah, that's really cool. Hey, the other thing you mentioned about families and using the pavilions. Some families generationally have done the same thing every single year, year in and year out, for as far back as they can remember. The lakes are actually part of their family celebration, aren't they?
Yes, sir. We have some families that have their reunions or just a birthday celebration every year on the same dates. It's like clockwork. We know that we can pretty much mark down them a reservation, years in advance.
Well, listen, Jeremy McCain, South State Lake Supervisor. It's been a pleasure to meet you this morning, my friend.
It has. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate what you do, and I love on SuperTalk Outdoors celebrating the many amazing people who work at the Mississippi Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. They're so dedicated to what they do. In fact, I mean, we wouldn't be the capital of the outdoors if it weren't for a strong Mississippi Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks, and so many dedicated and knowledgeable and educated people who have such a passion for what they do. We're so thrilled to have them in the state. In fact, when we come back, we're going to meet another one of those people and talk a little bit more about fall pond management activities. We'll see you after this break. Welcome back to SuperTalk Outdoors. I really enjoyed that conversation as we often celebrate here on SuperTalk Outdoors the incredible people who work at the Mississippi Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. And like I say, I look forward to getting into the Mississippi Delta this weekend, and hopefully we'll have some cool air in the mornings and able to get some work done. Man, we've got some roads to do some trimming on, and we're gonna spray some fields and get everything ready. We're actually using a drill to plant these days. We tested it for the first time last year, working with my friend Travis Dunn, and it worked really well. So poor Travis, that puts a lot more work on him, because that means that we're gonna, instead of plowing and planting like we normally do, we're gonna have the drill to do a lot of work with this year. So a lot of fun. Looking forward to getting up there, and over the next couple of weekends getting all our food plots ready to roll. Okay, now let's shift gears, and we're gonna spend some time now with Dennis Riecke, who is a fisheries coordinator for the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. He's been with the department for a number of years. Look forward to getting to know him better. How you doing, Dennis?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
I'm doing great. Where are you sitting right now?
I'm sitting in a conference room, and so that I don't have any distractions, so I'm sitting in the Wildlife Fisheries Conference Room.
Well, good. That's good. So, listen, I was doing some research this morning, and I actually found, like, in the area of wildlife ecology, if this is correct, with focusing on fisheries management, I saw your name cited a bunch of times on research. Have you been involved in a bunch of research over the years?
I have. I did a research project when I first came to the Mississippi Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks, and it was about the factors associated with crappie loss from Enid Reservoir when they release water. The other things that I've done is been a co-author on some publications about for new biologists when they go to be a supervisor and paddle fish and a couple of other things.
Yeah, so it's interesting. You never know what you're going to find on somebody when you do a little bit of research about them. But so talk about, where did you find your love of the outdoors?
Well, it was two things really. I was actively involved in the Cub Scouts and the Boy Scouts when I was growing up, and I like being outdoors, and I like going on campouts, and I like fishing. And when I was in high school, um, it was biology course really that I decided I like biology. I have an aptitude for it, and I like fishing in the outdoors. So maybe if we can combine those two things and study fishery biology, that would be a good career for me. And I never changed my mind, and it just all worked out for me. So those
And
two.
so how long have you been engaged in this career?
Well, counting the time that I spent in Kansas and Louisiana, this December will be 39 years.
Wow, that's incredible, Dennis. And over that course, I know what's interesting is you're focused on a lot of different areas that involve our ability to enjoy the outdoors. And over the years, you've met a lot of dedicated people who join you in that effort. But it's a very fulfilling career when you think about all you've been able to learn and all you've been able to do throughout your career, isn't it?
It is. The mission of the agency to conserve and protect and restore fish and wildlife populations for the benefit of, this generation or future generations, to help people with their ponds or help them fishing and understand, fishes. It is rewarding.
So, what's interesting about the department is that for people who are not aware of this, actually, if you have a pond on your property or have a lake on your property, the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks aren't just involved in public land. They actually will help you figure out what you need to do to make your pond or lake the best it can be. And that's got to be fun, actually, that outreach that you guys are involved in, helping people who have ponds that might be subpar become something that's really special. You've seen it over and over again, haven't you?
Yes, and it is because while it's a very individualized service and situation, realize that the pond is on their property, so they have access to it all the time. And so a lot of people don't know they think that you put fish in a pond and magically they reproduce and you can have good fish populations, or they might have inherited the pond and they want to do something with it. So helping them with that, their resource is, it can really mean something in their lives.
Well, I've seen some of your work, incidentally, through a friend of mine, and you guys came in and you talked about you focused on the pH level. You thought about weed control, which is something we all have to think about these days. You talked about building certain structures that might be good fish attractants and spawning bed construction and pier, the kind of piers that would be terrific to have. You kind of cover it all, don't you?
Yeah, we do cover it all. We don't perform those activities for people. We just give them advice and resources about what they can do and what they can hire people to do if they want to do that. Yeah.
Hey, so one of my friends, one of the things you guys advise is actually lowering the level of the pond in the fall. Why would you do that? What's the purpose of doing that?
Well, it could be several purposes. The first thing would be, let's say you have some aquatic plants that live underneath the surface of the water, or are on the edges, and they're perhaps non-natives from South America, Central America, and for these particular plants, it's been shown that cold weather and freezing can help control them. So you would those plants, you'd lower the water level to expose them to freezing air temperatures and take the water away from them, which acts as an insulator. So it could be for plant control. It could be to deepen the shoreline areas to prevent aquatic plants from growing in those areas. It could be if you're bluegill crowded or brim crowded, and they're up in those shoreline areas with a lot of brush and aquatic plants, and you want to remove them from that cover to increase bass predation. It could be if you want to make brim beds in shallow water adjacent to piers through gravel beds, and put in artificial structure in the form of cedar trees, or even buying plastic aquatic habitat. So it could be for a number of reasons.
So you see, actually, the fall is a really good time to think about enhancements you can make to your pond to make it better.
That's correct. And so if we draw the water down, it's easier to do those things. You don't have to work underwater, and you get equipment into those areas. So
hey, one of my friends has several ponds, actually. I think together it's about 10 acres. I may not remember that exactly right. Three different ponds, and they got way too many bass in them to start out with. And I learned recently, actually, because there's a lot of pines nearby, so that changes the pH of the water. But when you walk into a place like that and you say, "Gosh, these are beautiful ponds," and you see how many bass are in them, and then you look up and you see all those pine trees nearby, just from experience, you know pretty quickly what you need to do to improve that situation, don't you?
Yeah, it's not so much the pine trees. You're right about the water being more acidic. It's what can we do to manipulate the population in terms of harvest, and liming and fertilization also come into play, to reduce that bass density so that bass growth is accelerated or better. And it's basically you have to feed them. And how are we going to do that? Well, we either have to apply supplemental forage in the form of minnows and other forage fish, or we have to harvest the bass, or do a combination of both. Harvest the smaller bass so that we reduce their density, so that there's more food available for the bass that remain. And that's usually what we tell people to do.
So if you have a situation where you've got a pond that you want to drain, or actually draw down, not drain obviously, but you want to draw it down because you want to do some of the stuff that you just talked about. When we get on the other side, we'll talk about what you do if you don't actually have a drain pipe. You still have an opportunity to do that, obviously, and we'll get Dennis Riecke's thoughts about that, and then how to get in touch with them to get some consultation if you've got a pond and you want to engage the experts at the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Fisheries Coordinator Dennis Riecke. We'll see you after this break.
I said, one Mississippi, there's a magnolia tree. To Mississippi, where a mockingbird sings out on his limb, whistling that sweet soul for him.
We live in one of the best places in America to enjoy the outdoors. So let's talk about it. It's Super Talk Outdoors with Riecke Matthews on Super Talk Mississippi.
Welcome back to Super Talk Outdoors. I have Fisheries Coordinator Dennis Riecke with me this morning, and my thought about Dennis is this: that if you've got a pond or a lake and you want to get some expert consultation from the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks, man, I tell you what, you want to go to somebody like Dennis, who's been in the business for 39 years. Dennis, you've probably seen it all in your 39 years, haven't you?
Pretty much, but we still get questions that you've never gotten before, or situations that we've never encountered. But biologists have seen a lot of things. And
well, you know what's interesting though, man? You think about what you do and how long you've done it. And you probably, I often say, incidentally, that the older we get, the more we better realize how much we don't know, because the more we learn, I mean, it just it should give us a quest for knowledge. It keeps us humble, that's for sure. But, if I were you, I would enjoy going out and helping people who will take my advice and do the things that I tell them to do to improve their pond. And then a year or two down the road, having a conversation with them again and learning when they did everything they're supposed to do it right, and learning how cool it can be when that pond's at its maximum level of enjoyment. It's got to be fun to see people realize their dreams of improving their ponds.
It is. It is satisfying. Of course, they don't follow the advice, and is it because they weren't able to fish enough? Because they didn't have the money to buy lime and fertilizer. I don't know, but we get a little bit frustrated when, let's say, for instance, we went to someone's pond and we made some recommendations, and we keep records on all that. And so 3 years down the road, 4 years down the road, they call us again, and we look it up, and we say, well, have you done these things? No, I didn't do these things. Or the pond, especially with crowded bass or crowded bluegill population, it's going to stay. It's going to be in the same shape it was when we did the first recommendation.
Yeah, again, this friend that followed your advice, I mean, boy, he limed, he fertilized, he did structure. He had, I think his lake is about 20 acres, actually. And he had, including my son, he had a group of young people who went there to fish it. And if they were above a certain size, they would leave them in the pond. Below a certain size, they'd take them out. Each year that changed a little bit based on the population surveys that they did. He did everything. And what's interesting, he only kind of likes to fish. I mean, he loves, he'll fish occasionally, and he loves when he does it, but he's not like this big time fisherman. He just loves the process of making this lake the best it can be. And man, watching that lake over the years, the size of the bass and how amazing they are, but just by year in and year out, following the procedures, doing this population assessments, etc., and spending the money to get the pH right. It's been incredible to see what a lake could do when somebody's really dedicated to doing it.
Yeah, it is. It takes effort. It takes commitment to do it, but the results, I think people are well pleased with the results.
Hey, when we talked a minute ago, before we went to break, we were talking about how a lot of people have pipes that they can open up and drain a lake or draw it down for the fall drawdown we're talking about. If they don't have a pipe to do that, what's some of the ways they can get the lake level down?
Well, it's a little bit more difficult, and that's why we always recommend when people are building a pond to put in a drain pipe with a swivel. But if you don't have that, you could rent a pump and pump water over the dam to the backside into a creek or a low area, or you could get some PVC pipe and attach it and together, and you could make a siphon. You could fill it up with water, cap both ends, run it over the top of the dam, and on the back side of the dam, the dry side of the dam, remove the plug. We've already removed the plug on the water side of the dam, so gravity will do the work, and you'll have a siphon. So those are two of the ways you could do it. Another way is you could, now this would be a total renovation, okay? You could cut the dam to install the pipe, but you'd lose most of your fish. And I would recommend, getting rid of all your fish and starting over at that point.
Wow. So you've seen people just scratch it and just start from scratch.
Yes, in certain situations, it's the quickest way to achieve a balanced population with the correct species mix. Yeah.
Well, you think about it. It probably doesn't take long if you follow the procedures. It probably doesn't take long to get to a point where you can be proud of it.
No, I mean, even a total renovation, let's just say you spend 6 months doing some work and, the construction, but once it starts to fill up with water, you can stock the fish in, and you can be fishing it for bass 2 years after you stock the bass in.
That is awesome. Hey, listen, it's been a pleasure to meet you. This has been Dennis Riecke from the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. Have a great day and stay safe in the outdoors. We'll see you next Monday. God bless.